Welcome to Life with Ms.Jewell, where we dive deep into Black culture and the unique experience of life. Join me as we explore identity, connection, and the experiences that shape us. This is a safe space for honest conversations, culture celebration, and discovering new perspectives. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Life Podcast with Miss Jewell. Tonight's guest is Marjon. She's my bestie. I love her, and she has a lot to talk about. So we're going to engage in a wonderful, open, and honest conversation in a safe space. And let's go. Marjon,
Let's go.
tell us about yourself.
What would I share? What I would probably share today about me is that being a fellow human being, working to stay grounded, um, stay humble, stay in the work, and keeping my vision clear. That's who I am, and I tend to do that through working with other people and being reflective on my own, journaling, um, and believe that education has a healing power when it's done well. It's healing and transformative, and that's my modality.
Nice.
Yeah.
And when you spoke education, the world is just a big school of education, life lessons, and it's how we respond. Um, I was always in a reactive state, and it wasn't until I took some classes that Black people taught that told me, "Hey, that's not how you show up." Because I thought everybody else had a problem. It wasn't me; it was everybody else. And
I
I value education now that it's out of the public sector for a lot of us and it's in home where we can give our children true values that are taken from the ancients, the ancestors. And now in this new time in my life, I'm an elder now. So it looks very different for me. How do you feel about that?
so education was always a attractive thing for me. As a child, I felt like it was the key. It was a pathway to help my family members or those folks that I cared about who were struggling, and I quite frankly felt like folks didn't have it together. Like I'm looking at these folks who are older and, at the time I'm figuring they're, 30s, 40s, what have you. And it just wasn't making good sense to me as a child. And my deduction was if they knew more, if they had different information, um, then maybe they would make different decisions that would produce a more fulfilling life. Um, or at least in my own sense, I'd feel better about the life that I'm looking at. Like y'all, got a winning team for you and for me because I need to be living at a different vibration. That was my ego, that was my arrogance. Of course, I was living at the vibration that I was at because I needed to have it, so I can get to where I am now. Um, but I really felt passionate about in a vehicle.
Hmm.
And it was less around the training. And as I got older, it was more about the evocation of what's inside of you to come out. Like, so just knowing what's you're made of, knowing who's you belong to, um, and why you do what you do, and what is the greater good of it, um, became the just a continual driving force. So as a child, I knew probably by, I'm gonna say 7 years old, I think for sure, that
Mm.
this was the pathway I wanted to follow. And every year since that, it's just been looking at that, tweaking it. How does it work well? How does it not? And at this stage, I feel like it's helping other folks see what education means for them and how do they understand who they are. Um, how do I be a partner, in their journey?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and learning who you are for the greater good. So I mean, I don't see education completely different, just another evolution of knowing who you are. I think of the questions of Frantz Fanon. Who are you? Are you all that you ought to be? No, who are you? Are you all that you say that you are, and are you all that you ought to be? You know, I might have gotten it a little wrong, but those the that's the question. It's the essence of the quest. And I
That's a
keep following.
powerful, that's a powerful statement because that's how you know you aligned with your true self. And from our conditioning, it's really been hard for the last hundred of years to just show up and be ourselves. And now that we can, we have an opportunity to really cultivate what that looks like and how we're showing up. I think it's profound because now we can live in our truth. Now we can live in our own beingness.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for platforms like this and you're in education to develop the minds of the young ones, allow them to
Hmm.
express themselves in their totality, not what we want them to be or what we think they should be.
Exactly.
And I speak from my own experience in conditioning where always being told no, that, and being asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're like a nurse. Oh, they don't hire black nurses. What do you want to be? An archaeologist. I like to play in the dirt. My mother, historian, always had history books in Egypt and watching documentaries, right? Favorite thing to do still. You can't do that.
Hmm.
Well, I want to be a dancer. Well, by 7 years old, I was already fat. You can't be a dancer. So I had to constantly find pockets of places where I belong or where I felt good, right? Because it was always
Hmm.
so. And I can honestly say I gave up a long time ago, a long time ago.
Hmm.
And going
Hmm.
back to school in my 30s for
Hmm.
diesel mechanic, that's, starting all over again. And I was like, oh, I can make all the money because I was goal driven on making money honestly with integrity. And my uncle was a mechanic and showed me so many tricks, to, I had
Hmm.
a car, I had a Buick that I started with a light switch. That's how much, that's, talk about
Wow.
shade tree mechanic.
That's cool.
Okay. Oh, I wish my nephew was here to talk about it. He was like, "What the hell?" I said, "No, you got to lift the switch." It was like a light switch. They mounted it on a dashboard. Okay, what I'm telling you.
See, they know nothing about flipping switches back
Eh,
then. You don't know nothing
right,
about
right,
flipping switches.
right. Like, so, and I'm proud of that side of me because
Yeah.
ingenuity. Like my family,
Yeah.
oh no, we can put some things together, and that's really what it's about: is redefining, figuring out, and enjoying and embracing your best self, and not allowing the conditioning, the negative conditioning, shape you. That's what I would say. Not allowing that to shape you, but
Yeah, and I'll say define you, right? Because I think it does shape you. But I think it's like the defining and who goodness, pardon me, but I can't remember his name, but he's the founder of the EGI museum. Um, but one of his quotes that I like, and I'm going to mess it up a little bit, but you are not the sum of your bad decisions, basically. Like um, you're not the cumulative experience of all the negative things that have happened to you. That's not all of who you are. That's not the
Mhm.
totality of who you are. They do shape us, and they are worth being introspective and engaged in exploring that work. But it's not the sum of who you are. We are more than the worst part of us, or something like that, is what he says.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that part of education is not just shaping and developing our heads, our brain. but
Mm-hmm.
it's developing our hearts, in our body, and knowing that all those things work together. Cultivating our spiritual identity is so important. Knowing that you belong to something greater than just your own whims and desires. Um,
Definitely.
that there's other things you can draw from
Mm-hmm.
and connect to that help us be our best, um, and help us when things are tough. And, I'm thinking about right now, we're 2 days into this president-elect thing. And um, I was talking to my partner, and one of the things that they were saying is like there's what is it, St. Louis fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, not St. Louis. Oh, this is so bad. New Orleans, the Saints. That's not what I said, the Saints. And there's such a fervor, like there's this collective way of being. And so when the Saints lose, it's like the whole city feels it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not even a fan. And I feel like it's the same thing with this election. Even if you're not a quote unquote fan, but because of people that you care about, they may be attached to this team or that team. And regardless, just being in the environment of the frenzy, right? The anxiety, even if you yourself aren't anxious, being put in what I said was like a jar full of bees. It's like, how do you stay grounded? How do you stay so that you are not being stung by the frenziness, the
Right.
angst that people are going through? Because people are going to go through it. And that's part of the education process too. Is like, it's not just, again, it's not just your head, it's not just your heart, it's not just your body, it's your spiritualness, it's your grounding to everything that can be present and aware in the midst of all of the frenziness, right?
Right.
How do you be in it but not of it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real educational process. That's a real learning. That's a real practice.
Right.
Because times
Definitely.
like this call for that,
Right.
right?
Yeah, definitely. When you say, I love that analogy, um, because it reminded me of having anxiety and being bottled up, and the bees represent that feeling, and oh my God, I can't settle down, I can't breathe, what do I do? And that's the perfect opportunity to just experience a beautiful world, take those deep breaths,
Yeah.
stay in full gratitude, um, listen to your heart, like you said, and that's the best thing that we can do, because life is gonna life. That's the new term I've been hearing. Life is lifing.
Life is life. And
Life is
yeah,
lifing. I'm like, I don't know where y'all got that, but okay. So
it's
when
so true though.
living life on life's terms, keep it simple. We gotta
Yeah.
stop and we gotta stay grounded. So for time's sake, I'm gonna ask you one last question. What do you do to stay
Well,
grounded?
one more thing before I go, that just to carry the metaphor out real quick, and I will answer what I do to stay grounded, is even thinking about the metaphor of the bees, right?
Yes.
And I think we also have a mental model that bees are going to sting you, and that's not always the truth either, right? Um, so they naturally buzz and do this. There is what bees do. They fly
Mhm.
with wings, like hummingbirds. They just have a natural vibration. It doesn't always mean that it is an attack. That's what I also need to say is just because we're in a space in which there's a lot of buzzing and the vibration is really high and intense sounding,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily mean that the bees are angry or going to attack. And with that, it's important to note that this climate that we're in the United States, and I'm sure globally, part of the election results was based on a sense of fear
Mhm.
and this perception of feeling safe and not safe. And so, to your last question about what do I do, is I really work to um, feed my cells so that I can have better discernment between the information that I think is real and that is real,
Mhm.
right? I work with my breathing. I work with my rest. I am working to navigate my work life because I can easily get hijacked um, with my work life expectations and find myself just really, really sad, not just sad, but feeling like I don't have what it takes to get to the next step because it feels overwhelming or
Mm,
perpetually behind. Um, so, going back to just managing what I put in my mouth and eating well so I can have better discernment and not be hijacked by my sugar cravings, or my junk food cravings. Because I know when I do that, my mind is more reactive
mhm,
and less responsive. Same thing with being sleepy, or
mm,
we talked about being low, or being tired, that whole thing, hungry, tired, those things,
yes.
being mindful of that. And I only am able to do that really well when I am practicing the mindfulness. So it's like a recursive circle, that I have to keep practicing and keep being attentive to.
Right, you did. You gave me some good advice. And while I'm craving and wanting to eat, journal about it. And I did that, and I'm like, oh my God, it's such a release. It's like a purging. It's like, why are you eating this? What's the feelings behind it? What comes up? And so much came up for me. So I thank you for that advice.
Yeah,
It's really a way to keep in touch, in tune, and stay in alignment, but then staying in the now. I,
yeah,
it was, yeah, we need groups doing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I found that is, I was easy to get high. I'm very sensitive to my environment, and so
Hmm.
if I feel a certain sense of tension, my go-to would be like, well, depending on the situation, my go-to would be like chocolate. I know with chocolate, I got about a good maybe 30, 40 minutes before I was like,
I just said, yeah,
man, and I'm not thinking it straight, and I'm like, whatever, and it's like a sedative for me.
yeah,
And then there's other times I go grab my chips and I realize that I'm really angry, and I'm like, I'm wanting to fight, and what to do with those things. But I get hijacked and I
mhm,
don't always make the best decisions. And then when I don't do that, then I be flogging myself like, and I'm mad that I'm mad,
right.
So
You know,
I'm, it's a bad cycle. So I figured one of the better things that I could do that's a low hanging fruit for me is to pay attention to what I'm putting into my mouth so that the output is less problematic for me on the other side because I don't like being mad at myself. My
right.
friend Kevin always says, if you're going to flog yourself with a feather. If you're going to, it's like, quit being
No,
so hard on you because it's like, mistakes are bad.
yeah.
There's no room because of consequences or whatever.
Hmm.
And again, so to mitigate that is to watch what I'm taking in and how I'm resting and who I'm working with, and then allow myself to be okay with mistakes. I went through a period for maybe about a week in which I was just really down on myself for a mistake that I felt like cost a bunch. But to the people around me was like, you really tripping, you really taking,
Yeah, that,
so just having to really work with that knowledge of self and how I'm showing up and allowing myself to be in relationship, allowing myself to be loved. So that's how I take care of myself, is by knowing myself and allowing myself to be trusting of what I take in, what I put out, who I'm with, all those
that's
things, all
important.
those things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Marjon, I
Yeah.
thank you so much. And I can see you taking care of yourself because you're still smiling with your beautiful smile. Look at you, the pearly whites. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. It's
Um,
always a process, right? Being in
right.
a good relationship, people
Yeah.
who want the best for you, So that's the other part. You don't have to discern that. Like that person don't mean me no good. How do
Yeah.
I know that? Take care of your body.
And that you heard it from her. Take care of your body.
So you can take care of some other bodies.
Right,
Yes.
right, right. Oh, so thank you for joining
Thank you.
this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful episode of Life with Miss Jewell. Good night.